So in this video, we're going to cover some basic features of Word that are useful for writing your AP Chemistry lab report. So we're going to look at how to do in-text chemical equations, how to insert symbols, and how to use the equation editor. So my first example here is just an in-text chemical equation. So this is just normal font, just normal text. So I'm just going to go ahead and type the letters that I need. So I need KH, C8, H4, O4, and that's solid. And then I'm going to do a plus sign, and then I've got sodium hydroxide, NaOH, and that's aqueous. To get this nice little arrow, you just tap dash dash, and then you do the greater than sign, and it converts it into an arrow. And then my product here, I've got potassium sodium phthalate, so that's C8H4O4, and that's going to be aqueous. And then we've got water. So all that I've done is just type these, and if you look in the original equation here, we've got these little numbers. So we want to make these subscript. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight all of the ones that I want to make subscript. And then if you go under font up here in the toolbar ribbon, there's a subscript and there's a superscript. So we use subscript for how many number of atoms, and then we use the superscript whenever we use charges. So like if I wanted to indicate that the charge on the sodium is +1, I would just use the superscript there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for the rest of the symbols here. So I'm just going to highlight and then use the subscript button. If you don't have the subscript button, you can go under font here, and then you can just tell it what you want to display. So you can add that button to your toolbar here, or if you just click the button here, you can select subscript or superscript. So that's a pretty quick way that we can make chemical equations just using in-text characters. So now let's look at some of these useful symbols. So I've got a degree sign here, I've got a plus or minus, this is a delta, and then I've got greater than or equal to sign. So we're going to want to go to insert up here in the toolbar, and then go to symbols. And what will appear here are like the default symbols, or the ones that you use most frequently. If you don't see the symbol that you want there, you click more symbols, and then you kind of have to hunt for it. So there's lots of different symbols here. This lets you find, like it lets you skip to a given section. So there's all kinds. Here's Greek, all sorts of Greek letters there. So once you find it, it will appear in these recently used symbols. And then you won't have to go hunting for it anymore. So let's see if I can find a couple of these. That's a superscript 0. So that's another way that you could get those symbols. Let me kind of scroll down here and see what I can find. But yeah, all of these symbols that I've put here are just from searching through all of those choices. So there's a less than or equal to sign. Okay, so those are the pretty basic in-text ways that we can write chemical equations. This down here is using something called the equation editor. So this is a tool in Microsoft Word, and it lets us write these really nice looking equations here, and it also lets us do things like dimensional analysis calculations. So if I want to do a equation editor, I'm going to go to insert, and if I go to equation, I can click on this little guy here, and this gives me kind of like the basic equations. So there's area of a circle, and there's Pythagorean theorem and quadratic formula. But if I just click on the actual equation symbol, it will make this field for me where I can go ahead and type everything in. So I'm going to start with K, H, and then the next thing that I have is a C with a subscript 8. So I'm going to go to the script button here. And then these are different types of subscripts and superscripts. So here's a superscript, here's a subscript. This has both. This also has both, but it's before the actual writing. So I want this one, and I'm going to put my C and then I'm going to click on this little box here and put my 8. And then I can keep doing that however many times I need to. So I'm going to need to do H4 and O4. So I'm just going to set that up. I'm going to call that solid, and then do a plus sign, NaOH, and that's aqueous. There are also arrows. If you go up in here to the symbols, I can pick that arrow, and then I've got K and A, and then I've got that phthalate again. So I'm just going to put a bunch of these subscript fields here. And so I usually like to just put all of the fields in, and then I usually go back and fill in the actual letters and numbers and the rest of the equation. One of the things that I like about this is that it makes like a really nice L. Sometimes the liquid symbol, you know, it's hard to tell that it's an L, but whenever you use the equation editor, it's in italic and it just looks really nice and professional. So I'm going to put H4, O4. So there's that pesky phthalate. You can also, since this is on both sides, you can copy and paste. So I'm going to hit Control C to copy, and then I'm just going to do a Control V to paste, and there it is again. And then this is my H2O. And there we go. There's another way that we can write a chemical equation using the equation editor. So then my last example here, this is a dimensional analysis calculation. So in this particular calculation, we're taking grams of KHP, using molar mass to convert it to moles, and then a mole ratio to get to moles of NaOH, and then I just divide by the volume of NaOH to get the molarity. That should be a molarity symbol there. Okay, so if I want to do that, what I recommend you do is write it out on a piece of paper first, unless you're really good at this and you just know how to do it. But just like before, we're going to go to Insert and hit Equation. Now this time, I want to use this fraction button here. And I know that I need 4 of those, so I'm going to do the fraction button, and then I'm going to hit the multiplication sign, and then the fraction button. So I'm just going to do this until I kind of set up the skeleton of my equation here. So then at this point, it's just a matter of writing in my text here. So I'm going to start with grams of KHP over 1. I know that I need to convert the grams of KHP into moles of KHP. So this is the molar mass. And then I need to convert moles of KHP into moles of NaOH, and that's just a 1-to-1 ratio. If you look at the equation up here, there's my KHP and there's my NaOH. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Whoops. So I want to make that O and H capital because they're elements. Okay. So at this point, my answer would be in moles of sodium hydroxide. I want molarity, so I'm just going to divide by liters of sodium hydroxide. So I'm just putting that 1 on top as a placeholder. There's no units there. It's just holding that liters down on bottom there so I can see very easily that we're dividing. Okay, and then my answer, I've already done this math ahead of time. Don't forget correct units. So that big M means moles per liter. So we got moles of NaOH over liters of NaOH. That's the only thing that doesn't cancel. So this is a really nice way that you can show dimensional analysis work. You can make this as long as you need to. It will go down, like if you have more, like if your equation is longer, it'll skip down to the next line and then indent it so it's easy to see that that equation is just continuing. So this video was just about how to use some of the features in Word for your AP Chemistry lab report.